Henri, I spoke about you in the intro, and big thank you for coming. You've done amazing work. Why don't you have a seat here with me? Yeah, if you want to sit there. So, you were just saying to me off stage, what stage you think this industry is in. Why don't we kick off with that?
Yeah, so maybe by way of intro, thank you all for being here. I started working in the industry as an academic, so I come from sort of distributed systems research, and started around 2017 working at a company called Protocol Labs, building things like IPFS and Filecoin. And so a lot of my interest was in the research of it all. And through the work I was doing there, I thought, man, it is so hard to build very compelling products in this space because you spend so much time wrangling infrastructure that you lose out on building very good experiences. And so, obviously, I chose to build infrastructure, and we've since built basically onboarding and wallet infrastructure so that any developer can build, in a sense, asset ownership and wallet infrastructure into their apps directly, instead of having to kick off your user to a third-party product, a Phantom, a MetaMask, in order to let them collect or own whatever it is that they're doing. They can bundle basically crypto rails directly into the product. And so we, frankly, have been doing this since late 2021. And I think what we've seen is a real mindset shift in terms of how people approach building in crypto. I think when we started, the view was crypto is an alternative to the web. It's a completely separate sort of space. It is an island unto itself, maybe in fact the only credible alternative to the centralized systems that we have online. And you should be building something completely novel from first principle because we're trying to do something new. I think the mindset has shifted now to some version of crypto can be a superpower for the web, an accelerant to the web, but a complement to the web. And you should, in fact, not throw away all of the learnings that we have in terms of what it means to build a good experience, to build good UX, to think about conversion and retention. But you should marry these with this added sort of benefit that you get, which is the ability to bake in asset ownership into the product. So we work with really great products like Collect, obviously, that you and I have worked on. We work with companies like Courtyard that enables physical asset collection. So they collect Pokemon cards, baseball cards, trading cards. They digitize them and they allow people to basically trade the digital collectibles. We work with Blackbird, which is a restaurant payments platform that has memberships as NFTs. We work with OpenSea, obviously. We work with all of these players. Zora is an example as well of an Instagram where every post is an NFT and creators earn on the content that they create. And I think what we've really seen is a shift in how these people build. And so I guess my main takeaway after a super long rant is a lot of builders should rethink their first principles as they come and build with these assets, and look at what is the technology like today. I think a lot of the things that had to be true by necessity because the infrastructure was in a tough place 3 or 4 years ago no longer has to be true today, and a lot of the compromises that you had to make then no longer have to be made now. And so approaching the space with new eyes on how do I build an experience, going at it from the user's mindset first, I think yields very different products when you're building in crypto today.
You covered a lot of ground, and for those of you who have been in the industry a long time, year after year after year after year, we've heard that the industry is being held back by user friction. That is the problem that you're solving, isn't it, Henri? You have reduced user friction. I can remember 10 years ago being at Ethereum conferences and everyone standing up saying, we've got to remove user friction. It's taken 10 years. My view is that you and your team single-handedly have made the biggest contribution in our industry to removing onboarding friction for existing users and new users. For me, this is a little bit like the moment 15 years ago when I was at South by Southwest, when everyone was running around talking about a new app called Instagram. And Instagram was not that much different to some of the other photo sharing apps, but it was just so much easier. I think this is an Instagram moment for our industry, and amplified by the fact that you now have almost unlimited money, or will shortly have almost unlimited money behind you. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? your company was just taken over, wasn't it? Or just about to be?
Taken over is a strong term, but yeah.
What happened?
No, so we were acquired by Stripe a few weeks ago. The deal's still not closed, so we're fully operating as functionally different companies. And I think the thing that excited us a lot was the terms on which the acquisition happened, which is to say our ability to continue running with the sort of mission that we've had thus far, which is actually enabling people to create on-chain apps much more easily and bake asset ownership into their products. But we continue to operate as an independent product, which is my pushback on the takeover, I guess. And I think the really interesting thing is the way in which we're seeing sort of two worlds come together between stable coins and digital assets more broadly, be that investment assets or collectibles or anything like that. And I think what we get to do is kind of act as a bridge between those two worlds. And I think actually the two worlds reinforce each other in a very, very meaningful way, because at the end of the day, the core user friction that remains today, if you're trying to operate in the space, is getting mainstream users access to digital assets in the first place. How do you buy an NFT? How do you mint something? One, if you don't have a wallet. Two, if you don't have assets to actually do this. And I think people coming on via fintech with stablecoins, for example, will add a huge amount of sort of liquidity to the overall interaction set. So we see the worlds as we work really feeding each other and blending together. And I think getting to continue to do that, in this case, operating with the team at Stripe that we're huge fans of, is really exciting.
And just to drill down on how we can be so excited about what you're doing, the enabling technology is the smart wallet technology, isn't it? Because in the past we've had to download MetaMask and we've had to fiddle with MetaMask, and sometimes it's worked and sometimes it hasn't worked. And you've made it super easy with your payment rail for developers to wire up a button and for a user to click that button and it'll then mint or transfer. So everything is under the hood. That's the contribution that I think you've made. Is that a reasonable summary?
Yeah, it is. And I would put it as no having to download a third-party extension, an app or a browser. It is no having to wrangle seed phrases. You get a self-custodial wallet, but it is built into the app itself. And you can always export it and take it with you anytime you want. But otherwise, you don't have to think about the infrastructure you operate on in the same way that I've never had to think about, how Netflix bandwidth operates and how they actually stream video into a local codec on my browser. I think this is the state that the industry has been in. It still is to some extent with things like gas sponsorship and having to think about gas when you're trying to do something. So there's a long way to go, but I think we've made tremendous progress as an industry in actually building products that are more welcoming to anybody, and then little by little sort of unveiling and uncovering the parts of this stack that actually are very exciting insofar as real ownership is concerned.
And who in the audience knows what a self-custodial wallet is? Does everyone know what that is? So I think we might need to just explain it a little bit. And if I might just have a go at describing why this is very important. Because when wallets are custodial, we get into trouble with regulators. It means we're banks. If we're able to access the wallets of our customers, then the regulators see us as being in control of people's money. And that's not something that I want to do, and it's not something that most people don't want to do, and you certainly can't do it in most Western jurisdictions without a license. But this concept of a self-custodial wallet, do you want to explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea is to cryptographically ensure, so at a technical level, that only the user can manage their own assets. So the user is the only party who can actually sort of trigger the wallet coming together and then any transactions on the wallet. So it does two things. It, in a sense, ties the developer's hands, as you were saying, from having any access to user funds. And in any event, it ties our hands, obviously, as a provider. And so I think it's a switch from, in order to interact with your product, I have to deposit my assets, whatever they may be, into your bank account, and then you're holding them on my behalf, you are accounting for how they exist, and you get to choose what I can do with them, to I get to bring my own account with me into your app. Now, I think what's very interesting is that we see ourselves as a real complement to MetaMask, Phantom, the great wallets that exist. in that there are trade-offs to any experience that you build. And so by baking the wallet into the app itself, you're fundamentally giving the developer a lot more control over their craft. You don't have to pop up an icon whenever somebody wants to transact or mint something. As you were mentioning, you can add actions behind a button where clicking this, will transfer an NFT somewhere, or will help me earn yield on it or something like that. But in exchange, you are constraining some of the controls that the user has over the experience. And so this is kind of what we contend with a lot in most of our work from a product standpoint, is about finding the right balance points where the developer and the users can meet for a new type of experience on the web where the user actually owns the stuff that they're collecting through the app.
And this is not your first time around solving really difficult problems. I can remember in the early days of NFTs, we had a real challenge figuring out how to store images. We couldn't do it on-chain, and we still can't do it on-chain with many blockchains. And many of us used IPFS. You started this quest of trying to solve difficult problems at IPFS, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, I love the team at Protocol Labs. I think they're incredible. So most of it up front, if I'm completely honest, was I want to do distributed systems research. This is an amazing team that I'm excited to work with. And through it, I got to know, IPFS and different decentralized systems for file storage. I actually think the mindset, though, is correct of this shift to, I think this industry, rightfully so, deeply values decentralization, self-custody, trustlessness. But all of these are dangerous words because they're way too often used as binary statements. Is this decentralized or not? When in fact, it's a spectrum. You have to think about the threat model. You have to think about what you're countering for. And I think starting to think again about product experiences more from what is my user looking for? Does my user even know what crypto is? Do they care? And then from there, you invite them into this world is a shift that we've seen occur. But yeah, I think a lot of my views on all of this was forged building at very low levels and just seeing how complex this technology is and how much work we have to do to abstract it away so anybody can interact with it.
For those of you who are here for the opening, you may remember that I spoke about the 4 pillars that I think are going to re-enable our industry. And public policy and regulation was one, and brands re-entering was number 2, and your self-custodial wallets was number 3. So big thank you for that. What's interesting, though, it's just the beginning of brands, mainstream brands adopting the technology. And I read last week that Amazon, would you believe, Amazon and Walmart are bringing out their own stablecoin. They have to be customers of yours, Henri. Like, if anyone from Amazon or Walmart listens to this, guys, you need Henri's tech.
Thank you for that. Yeah, would love to talk. I think the thing I would urge anyone to do, and this is what we do, we have a hackathon on Friday internal to our company to try and work with more AI tooling. We know that we're completely outclassed in terms of understanding how software is written today, and we have to get to know new things, and that takes just playing around with them with kind of an open mind on what works for us, what doesn't. So we're going to work on completely unrelated things to the core work that we do, just really to get to know the stack. And I would tell anybody who's been working in crypto for the last, call it 5 years, 2 years, whatever it is, take 2 days and try to build something from scratch using new tools and see how that changes your approach to building things altogether. But I think given the fact that I agree with you, I think the next 2 years are going to be seminal in making these rails a core part of the fabric of the internet in the way that we've been talking about for so long. Questioning your priors and your assumptions about the way things have to be done is going to be really important.
I think you were saying earlier when we were talking about the resurgence, you were saying, Jodee, don't think of it as a resurgence, sort of think of it as a beginning of self-custodial wallets. So sort of it's not an old stage going up, it's sort of a whole new stage in our industry. And just to be clear, all the work that my team has done with brands, very often the brands have shut down and said, oh, Jodee, there's a regulatory problem, but also we don't want to have the risk of controlling people's wallets. And you solve that problem, which is fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be an everlasting tension. And I think this is such a wide problem, and maybe this is what excites me, and this is what excites me about working with Stripe, is we have a lot more work to do in terms of enabling everything else. So I've never been more optimistic about the things that we get to build in this industry. I resist saying it's a solved problem. I think we have a long way to go.
Yeah, well, I hope now that your big company is getting involved, you're not going to go and move to Miami and sit on the beach. You're going to work even harder.
We are here. We're going to stay in our office, and we're going to keep doing what we're doing.
Amazing. I think we've got a couple of minutes for some questions. If anyone wants to, do we have a microphone in the audience? Does anyone want to ask Henri a question? If not, I'll jump in. Does everyone? Yep, there we go. Thank you. Do you want to jump up? There's a microphone coming over to you. And if you could just say your name as well, please.
Hi, I'm Nicola McNeely. I started my journey into Web3 in stablecoins, commodities, fungible tokens, working with BitGo and people like that, and custodial wallets and stuff. And I was just wondering how you think stablecoins and that market's going to fit in with what you're doing at Privy with non-fungibles.
Sorry, I didn't hear the end of your question. I heard stablecoins, that market, we're gonna, and then I missed the rest.
Yeah, so whether you think there'll be a convergence between, stablecoins and NFTs and how all that's going to come together.
Yeah, it's a really great question, and so, I obviously I'm speculating, so take it with a grain of salt, but, stablecoins, and in this case Tether, so USDT, really came about as a mechanism for exchanges to be able to operate over basically nights and weekends, because people didn't want to have to move back to fiat and then again, and instead wanted to hold digital assets in order to keep trading. And so I think there's a very natural point where ultimately, as you're moving in and out of these assets, you want to hold these, you don't want to move in and out of the digital realm, so to speak. You want to stay in the world of, call it, the digital realm, but so I think there will probably be like two ways in which they converge. First, fintechs today already have broad distribution. There are hundreds of millions and billions of people who use financial services through the web. And so they are going to bring a whole new set of users to crypto by just fluidifying the rails for people coming on chain. So that'll be the first convergence point, less so on the product level, more so on the demographic level of people who otherwise might have dropped off in terms of adoption, who today seeing, oh, I can earn another, digital asset, I can collect this, I can trade this, I can have more of my world come on chain. That's going to be much easier for them because they're already in the fold. And so I think that's going to happen both through having assets to begin with, but also I think also from a cultural mindset. The reality is that crypto has a terrible reputation as an industry, and these use cases will come a long way, I think, to changing that. I think the second way from a product perspective is, ultimately we're talking about the difference between fungible and non-fungible assets. Like the NFT is unique or one of a set, but it. Whereas the stablecoin is interchangeable with any other of its kind. And I can just see a lot of ways in which basically NFTs, not just as art or culture, but as real estate. I think tokenized securities is going to be a big way. All of these things I think will start to basically change what we mean when we talk about NFTs and bring people back. So I look at one of our customers, Blackbird, as a really good example. They're a restaurant loyalty app in New York. You can go to a restaurant, download their app, and check into the restaurant by tapping your phone against a puck. And when you do, you earn two things in two different wallets that we help them orchestrate. You earn an NFT, that's your membership as a restaurant goer to that restaurant, and you earn assets that you can use to pay for your bill. And so I think these are these two worlds, again, coming together at the product level. I think we're going to see a lot more of that over the coming, call it, 2 years, once people have sort of explored the new meta of stablecoins itself and started moving into other phases of what can I do next.
What was the name of that restaurant again?
It's called Blackbird.
Blackbird.
Yeah, so if you go to blackbird.xyz, they're great. They have hundreds of locations in New York that you can go to.
Fantastic. I think we have time for one more question. We've got 1 minute left. Right up the front here. Thank you. Do you want to jump up? I'm not sure that there's a mic on the way.
Hi, I'm G2. I'm a 5-year developer in the Web3 space. I've seen Privy come into the space, and I'm wondering now with this Stripe, I'm not. Is it an acquiring? I'm not. Okay. So will this make Stripe implementation easier for us developers in this space and using stablecoins and USDC for our customers and clients?
It's a great question. So again, we're still very much two distinct companies, and in that sense, I can't talk to Stripe's projects all that much. What I would say is, the answer is, this will probably get a hell of a lot easier for you, and also probably not thanks to us, which is to say, we're going to continue to operate, Privy as a wallets company, and our roadmap, the customers we serve, isn't changing. And in that regard, I think using wallets will get much easier thanks to the acquisition. And then separately, I think Stripe clearly has invested a lot. They acquired a company called Bridge earlier, I guess this year. They're doing a lot with stablecoins, and so I do think all of that will get much easier. It's clearly something they're very serious about, and that's part of why we've been super excited to sort of join. But I think today it's two separate work streams in a sense.
Henri, thank you so much for joining us. It's an absolute privilege to have you on stage, and it's a privilege to work with you as a technology partner. And we wish you so much success over the next few years. We look forward to having you back next year to tell us what it's like to actually work with Stripe.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everybody.